I've spoken to several MPs who will be voting behind me. 650 of them will be voting later today, and not one of them has said they're going to back Mrs May's deal. I've spoken to a Conservative hard Brexiteer who said we'd prefer to run the clock and actually go for a no-deal Brexit, actually leave on the 29th of March without a deal. I've spoken to a representative of the DUP, their Brexit spokesman. DUP, of course, the Northern Irish Unionists, who have got such big reservations about the backstop, the Irish backstop, and a softening of the border between the EU and Northern Ireland, and putting up of barriers between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. And I spoke to the Labour Shadow Transport Secretary as well today, who said actually not only will they vote against it, but he believes, and this is a real scenario that will happen soon after the vote if Mrs May loses, that there will be a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister, and that has to occur within 14 days. Now just run with me on this one. If we get a vote of no confidence and she loses, and no one else is able to put together a government, a minority government, a different party, or indeed someone from the Conservatives, and get a vote of confidence, and that leads to a general election, which just increases the mess that we're having in British politics at the moment. Other scenarios, one, she could win this vote again, but it's very difficult to see how she could do. Two, she loses by a small margin, and actually small enough to think that actually there's some wiggle room with some of the MPs who voted against her. So then she will try and perhaps go back to European Union leaders, back to a European Council meeting, which could be convened by the weekend, and say, just give me something, give me some assurance that I can go back and say I've negotiated and I've got a little bit more out of you as well. And then she would put this withdrawal bill to another vote and maybe scrape over the line. We could see another referendum as well. It's an outside scenario at the moment, but there is a path by which the Labour Party, which is led, of course, by Jeremy Corbyn, at the moment don't want a second referendum, but they could see a way forward of saying, yes, we'll go for a second referendum as well. And then it's anyone's guess how that one would go as well. And then there's the most likely scenario in many people's eyes is that we're going to get an extension of Article 50. Don't forget, and I'm sure our viewers know this by now, we've told them enough, March the 29th, the British are supposed to be out of the European Union, this Article 50 process. But quite frankly, we're nowhere near ready in terms of getting the legislation in place as well. So there could be an extension to Article 50, which would then mean extensive more dialogue with the EU as well. But there's a whole host of issues here. And one thing that I can say to our viewers, that most of MPs, a majority of MPs, appear not to like Mrs May's plan. The problem comes in the fact that they do not have a plan B that enough of them can get behind as well. There are things about leaving without a deal as well, which would mean we'd use WTO rules as well. We could perhaps get a Canada Plus style trade deal as well. But again, not a lot of people favour that. Or be like Norway, which isn't in the EU, but takes a lot of EU rules, pays into the EU budget as well. And we could have that kind of relationship based on some form of customs union as well. But I can assure you that not one of these scenarios commands a majority at the moment. And that is why we have a quagmire, an absolute opaque mess in British politics in Parliament behind me. Back to you guys.